All right, guys, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, one of the most anticipated sequels in video game history. Still doesn't have a release date or a title revealed, but yet all signs still point for a release date in 2022. Hey, what's up, everybody? Wes here. If this is your first time on this channel or watching my videos, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and also like the video and share it out to all of your friends. So without further delay, let's go ahead and talk about what is going down in Nintendo's mind that they're still going to release Breath of the Wild 2 this year. Obviously, we know the lineup for this year for just video games in general is absolutely stacked. We got Starfield releasing, we got Hogwarts Legacy, we've got the new Pokemon Generation 9 all competing during the same Q4 timeline, which has a lot of people thinking the Breath of the Wild 2 is obviously going to get delayed, but that has not been confirmed yet. Now, this of course has all eyes on E3 2022 to be the deciding factor on whether or not we will indeed get Breath of the Wild 2 this year, or if it'll take the same approach as the original game and get delayed multiple times. With E3 2022 going all digital, it kind of gives me a little bit of hopium that we're going to get at least something for Breath of the Wild 2 this year. Obviously, the game is slated to release, but Nintendo has been known to push back games, and if history does repeat itself, then we might see a similar situation happen. But one thing is for certain, if we get E3, we're gonna get Breath of the Wild 2. If we take things back all the way to 2019, the first official reveal trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 was indeed at E3 2019. So regardless if the game gets delayed, we will 100% know what the title and release date is during the E3 2022 Direct. Now, if an E3 Nintendo Direct happens this year and Breath of the Wild is absent, then I see no chance of it releasing this year. I think that it could very easily slip into 2023, especially if we don't get some sort of reveal. And then there's the possibility that Nintendo gives us a new console revealed in October of this year with a release date for early 2023, sometime in March likely, and then they hold off on showing any Breath of the Wild until a February Direct. One thing that I do want to mention is February Directs for Nintendo have been absolutely banger over the last couple of years. Like this last Direct that we had was absolutely stacked. The fact that we got Mario Strikers revealed, Nintendo Switch Sports, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, overall it was just a massive Direct. So I can see Nintendo wanting to repeat history and give us an absolute banger in February. Ever since we got Breath of the Wild 2 initially revealed in 2019, I have said that we are not going to get that game until a new Nintendo Switch console. Obviously, we don't know when we're going to get another Nintendo Switch console. The last one we got, the Switch OLED, is selling super well, and with supply chain issues that could potentially arise from a brand new console, I think it'll be a stretch for one to happen anytime soon. But this is Nintendo we're talking about, so who knows? It could be already in the works and happening. But what I will say is I really do still believe that a Breath of the Wild 2 only makes sense to launch with another Nintendo Switch console. Whether it's called the Switch 2 or Switch Pro, a game like Breath of the Wild deserves to be played on the best settings possible. If you ever played CMU, then you know how well Breath of the Wild 2 could look. All it needs is a little bit of upgraded hardware as well as some other settings like DLSS to really take it to the next level. Now, there's also the reality that the first Breath of the Wild game wasn't even built for the Nintendo Switch. It was originally a Wii U game, like a lot of the other mainline games that are on the Nintendo Switch. So the development time that we're seeing could be to optimize the game and ensure that this next Breath of the Wild game looks the best on Nintendo Switch, because it is indeed developed on it and it won't be releasing on the Wii U. So there's the very likely possibility that the reason development is taking so long for Breath of the Wild 2 is to fully optimize the engine for Nintendo Switch and give the game the Nintendo Switch polish that it does deserve. If you take a look at the hardware from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch, there is a big bump, which should give them enough headroom to make the game look even better for the Nintendo Switch now that they don't have to worry about developing the game on two different systems. It still looks good on the Nintendo Switch and plays really well. The FPS is super solid, but we know how good the game could look, which is why I think we won't see Breath of the Wild 2 until another Nintendo Switch console comes around that does have upgraded performance. For those of you that are still concerned with the development of Breath of the Wild 2, one thing that I do have to mention, a game like Breath of the Wild and Breath of the Wild 2 does take a lot of time to develop. It's not something they could slap on new dialogue options and different features and mechanics to make the game different and call it a day like other game franchises. This is the Legend of Zelda. Every single mainline game takes a lot of time to develop. The amount of Easter eggs and different puzzles and callbacks from previous games, and just overall a living and breathing world, is not going to be something they rush. They have the reputation of Nintendo on the line, and they will delay this game for years and years and years until they get the completed product that they want to release. And then once the game is polished and then polished again, then they'll think about shipping the product. It's the same reason why we haven't gotten any new details or updates regarding Metroid Metroid Prime 4, where they literally restarted the development of the entire game just to make sure they got things right. So even if we don't get Breath of the Wild 2 at E3 this year, just know that the next game that we're going to get is going to be the product that Eiji Aonuma and the rest of the developers want to release. We can also see that with the original Breath of the Wild, which the game actually started development in 2013 and was actually set to release in 2015, and then they pushed it back to early 2016, and then eventually we got the release date finally for March 3rd of 2017. So the original Breath of the Wild was pushed back 3 times, and we have yet to see a single delay for Breath of the Wild 2. Now, it's also interesting to note that Breath of the Wild 1 took around 5 years to develop, which basically they had to make an entire game from scratch. With Breath of the Wild 2, they don't have to do that, so they are able to reuse assets. And if development of Breath of the Wild 2 started shortly after the second DLC for Breath of the Wild 1, The Champion's Ballad, which released in December of 2017, that means the sequel to Breath of the Wild is taking as much time to develop as the original Breath of the Wild 2. Now, if we take into consideration the global situation that kind of threw things for a loop, then it definitely would make sense that Breath of the Wild 2 is taking a little bit more time to develop than it should. I want this game to be the best sequel we've ever had in Nintendo history, and the only way that that happens is if we give the developers all the time that they need. If Breath of the Wild 2 isn't at the E3 Direct this year, then it will be disappointing, but I will be able to go to sleep at night knowing that the game will get even better the longer we wait. Now, I'd like to talk about a possibility for Breath of the Wild 2's next reveal that we have not seen in a while, and that is a game-focused Nintendo Direct, meaning a direct presentation with the full focus on Breath of the Wild 2, where they do the full reveal trailer where they announce the title of the game, the release date, they do a full gameplay walkthrough, show off some new mechanics and different features, similar to what we've seen in the past with a Smash Ultimate presentation. As much as I'd love to see that happen soon, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the goal for Nintendo is to do their E3 Direct of 2022 sometime in June. They do the Nintendo Classic by showing off all of their heavy hitters releasing for the rest of the year, and then the one more thing that we get is Eiji Aonuma showing up and giving us the Breath of the Wild 2 presentation that we have all been waiting for. Either way, guys, the hype is real. We're gonna get a Direct soon. It's gonna be happening in the summertime. Whether or not the Direct will be an E3 or if it's just gonna be a summertime Direct, one thing is for certain: if Breath of the Wild 2 is there this year, then the 2022 release window will still remain true, but only time will tell. Guys, that is gonna wrap it up with this video. Let me know down below if you will be buying Breath of the Wild 2 when it releases. Do you think that we're gonna get a new Nintendo Switch console for the release of Breath of the Wild 2, or do you think the 2022 holiday season is still in the cards? Guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel with your notifications on, and be sure to check back again tomorrow for more Nintendo Switch news like this, as well as other topic videos discussing Nintendo and Breath of the Wild 2.